It's taken me a long time to realize that failure is actually a way forward. It's not something that's going to stop you. But now with business and actually being a true business mindset person, like now I have employees and stuff, I realize failure is not something that will stop me in my tracks. It's something to learn from, which in return has created a way better mindset.
Well, I'm excited today. So it's our first kickoff for Entrepreneurial Impact podcast with myself and Dave Donaldson. I've had the pleasure of working with Dave for the past 2 years, running a residential real estate region for Keller Williams. And I personally am excited to have him as well as his guest today, Dilara. And what's phenomenal for me is that, real estate itself is a vehicle through entrepreneurship, whether that's starting up a small business or having a vision for what you want to actually impact in life. And what I'm really excited about is that my entrepreneurial spirit has really been a key to my success over the past 10 years. And then looking at Dave and what he's been able to do within real estate and technology for Keller Williams has been really fun for me. And I think when you live that type of entrepreneurial life, that being able to tell that story and be able to find people like-minded like ourselves, that it's just great to tell that story. And I think a lot of times we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes as leaders. And what I'm excited about for Dave is just his journey has been amazing. And my journey's been amazing as far as what entrepreneurship can do for people. And I'm just excited to kick off this podcast. It's been a dream of Dave's and I's for the past 2 years. And to finally get pen to paper and actually kick it off the ground is another part of entrepreneurship that can sometimes delay and procrastinate and have visions of grandeur, but never actually rubber hit the road. So, I've had 10 years, Joe Martin, area director for Keller Williams, but have all kinds of other entrepreneurial interests within real estate. And I'm excited from a leadership position to have Dave on this show with me and really pour into his perspective. So, Dave, what's your journey been?
I appreciate that, Joe. And you're right. I mean, we think of real estate and think of what we're doing after having been in this arena for 15 years. And I think of all the things that real estate provides, but all the other things that we can do inside of the field, aside from buying and selling real estate, right? It's opened a lot of doors. And becoming somebody that's been comfortable and confident as an instructor and working with technology, and therefore becoming like a business coach for a lot of the associates around the region and in our market centers, I've established different relationships with them. We could talk candidly. We could talk differently. I've seen people build their businesses. And, as a small part of it, I feel good in knowing that my relationships may help them move forward a little bit. And I kind of hide in the background for that, right? And working with you over the last 2 years, we've kind of been able to step that up. Now, Zoom and podcasting is new to us, but instructing comes naturally. Working one-on-one is naturally. But when you think about impact, what are we allowed to do? What does it allow us to do? What does my personal growth mean for me? And seeing somebody like Dilara and where she's come from, what she's doing in a very quick or short period of time is pretty amazing. And I've enjoyed watching that and working along with her. And as she's built her business and seen some of the things that has allowed her to do, just like I've experienced them in my personal life, growing as a realtor, a coach, an instructor, and now working at a regional level as a business coach. So Dilara, why don't you take a little bit of time, tell us about you and how you got here.
My name is Dilara Wentz. I'm a real estate agent out of the Northern Virginia, DC area. I'm a military spouse, a mom, and now the owner of the Valiant Group here in the DC, Northern Virginia area. And being an entrepreneur is something that really just seemed to come naturally over time. I'm first generation on my father's side here in America. And that, foot to pavement kind of thing has always been, something that's run within my family, work hard, earn what you get in life kind of mentality.
Your father immigrated here. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
So so what I'm hearing is that did entrepreneurship actually start at a very young age with just your father deciding that he wanted something better and came to the States? So where did that start?
So my dad came here in his 20s and worked for Boeing for a little bit with some of his relatives, his brother and his dad, and eventually ended up opening up his own janitorial business and started cleaning office buildings and actually became a car salesman later on. and ended up being the general manager of a car dealership that he washed rugs in at one point. So definitely working your way through society for sure.
So yeah, Joe's right. So that hit you early on because you were able to watch and see what he did, right? And
yeah.
He was driven. What was your first experience? What was your first entrepreneurial experience? What did you start to do at an early age?
Well, I always knew that, the harder you worked, work smarter, not harder program, right? So I've done a lot of different things like customer service. I worked at Starbucks. I had so many different job titles. And then when I was living in Hawaii, when we were stationed in Hawaii, I started up a photography business. I just kind of picked up a camera one day, started taking photos, learning from YouTube and such about cameras, how to take better pictures and so on. And then, asked some people if I could take some photos for them. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you don't charge for this. And I was like, man, I could do this, right? I could charge for this. And so I got better at photography and started charging little by little. I did it as a hobby at first, so I didn't have to clean taxes because I wasn't making enough. So I was taking tips instead of charging like a set amount, right? And then eventually progressed my business from there and made a really good living when I was living in Hawaii with my photography business for sure. So that's really where it started for me, knowing that I could be my own boss, keep myself accountable and those kind of things and create relationships with people.
Yeah, if the IRS is listening, you've paid back taxes on all
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, this will be rolling on right around tax day. So
right. Yep.
It's pretty amazing when you think about, and when we talk to a lot of people and how they got their start. And a lot of it just starts with a hobby or a question or an opportunity. And it's what you do with that opportunity, right? For me, it was instructing in class and somebody said, well, what if we just had you do this? And I'm like, I don't know. And all of a sudden you have a line, right? And for you, it was like, I started doing something you were passionate about. And then people started saying, wow, look what you can do for us in wedding pictures and what that has kind of developed for you. So you transitioned from there, you came here. What were those next steps?
Well, my husband had gone overseas for 2 years after my son was born. He was about 3 weeks old and went to Bahrain for 24 months. And at the time I had worked in sales at a gym because we were in that transition period. Didn't really have a home per se because my husband was deployed and I was living with family. Then we bought our first house and I was really excited and then realized I wasn't so excited anymore. And for many reasons, there were lots of problems with my home. And I kind of thought, I just couldn't believe I had bought a house like this and that someone had let me buy a house like that. And I was arguing with my husband about cucumbers one day. We were in the middle of the grocery store. I wasn't working at the time. And we were arguing over produce because we were living paycheck to paycheck. We had put so much money into this house that we had bought because of things we had to fix that we had racked up all the debt we had paid off. And it seemed like 24 months was all of a sudden a wash. We spent that time apart in order to get debt free. And this house had put us right back in the hole. And we were in the middle of Wegmans arguing over cucumbers. And I kind of hit my breaking point of no thanks. Like I can do something better with my life, right? Like this is crazy. Like we should not be doing this, living paycheck to paycheck. And I looked at my Alta statement from the sale of my home and was like, dang, I can make that much money. and started, looking at how to get into real estate and stuff. And that's kind of how I fast tracked into real estate, getting my license and later on realizing what business I could build within real estate.
What I find fascinating about entrepreneurship is that a lot of times on the ground level, there's problems, right? That there's real world problems, and that corporations and 9-to-5 large scale enterprises can't figure out how to fix things, right? That like there's a serious gap. And what's fascinating from your story is that because of your husband's life and his work profession, being able to relocate, you got to find a job or a career, or a business that allows you to have flexibility wherever you like locate, which it with also the ability of delivering income, right? Because what I'm hearing from your story is that like, hey, we got back into this debt, but at the same point, the only reason you looked at your Alta statement was that you had a pain point in your experience as a consumer, as a person around a home, right? And if you look at one of the leading drivers of wealth creation, stability, and generational progress is home ownership in the US. And that's a real life problem. Like I've heard a ton of stories about, hey, why did you get into real estate? And it turns into, I had a horrible experience with my realtor, right? Or it's that there was something fundamentally wrong with the home that I purchased. And had I known more, I could have prevented this. And now it's like, hey, I experienced this. How do I pass that on to somebody else and help them through that? And what's fascinating about entrepreneurship is that usually there's a small thing that is being overlooked in an industry, and that you find that niche, you see that value, and you can make a huge impact on it, right? Without all the bureaucratic red tape and blah, blah, blah. And then you have this freedom based on your life that this opportunity to build a real estate business was huge for you because you bring impact to the people, knowing that you went through it and somebody else day by day, house by house, you could facilitate making sure that never happened.
Right.
But at the same point, look at the compensation structure of that industry to really pay off the debt, right? So that's amazing from just your story, which is really powerful for me. So you recognize that on the Alta statement. What do you do next? Like, what's the next? How do you go into like selling houses? And you've got you're trailing 24 months. You sold over 100 homes with over 50 million sales volume. Like in 4 years, that's incredible. So like you had some drive. You saw an opportunity. You took it. You ran with it. What was the next step of like actually getting your first listing, your first buyer, your first rental? Like, what's that?
So I had sat down with my husband and basically said like, hey, I'm going to do this real estate thing, and I think I could be really good at it. Really because looking into it, it was a relationship business, right? And I've always been really, really passionate and really good at building relationships with other people. And he said, okay. And I said, I'm going to give myself 90 days. If I don't get a house sold within 90 days, I'll go back to working at the gym, because the gym was a commission job also. And I was already good at that. And I knew I'd be good at it anyways. So I gave myself 90 days. And I got my license, gave myself 90 days. And within 2 weeks of getting my license, I got my first client. It was at a friend's barbecue, actually. I was sitting down at the dining room table, and this lady walked in and she said, if I could find a house like this in my price point, I'd buy today. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I'm like, do you have a real estate agent? And they're like, no, we just started thinking about buying. And I was like, I can help you, right? I'm trying not to get all giddy, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get my first client. But I met with them, that night. Tuesday, I showed them a house. Wednesday, we were under contract, and 25 days later, they closed on their house. And I was like, dang, this is super awesome and really easy. It's not that easy. Real quick. It was not going to be that easy.
But you allowed yourself to be opportunistic, right?
Yes.
You were prepared. You were driven. You had seen, right? Historically, you've seen your father take steps and action. You've had steps and action. And at that point in time, you were prepared, right? You're like, I'll figure out the contracts. I'll get everything else. I'll make that work. But you listened and you were ready to take.
Right. And I think what's so important was with Keller Williams, I had coaching, I had a mentor, right? So those cues were something that they told me to look out for. And then later on, came the lead gen and everything that I stayed consistent with in order to get business. I didn't know anyone. We had only lived here for less than a year when I got my license here in Virginia. And I had that hit the pavement mentality. I went out to Starbucks. I met people at Panera, like just randomly striking up conversation with people. So like one person, had to plug in their laptop, or, I was like, oh man, can I use your laptop or your plug-in? And he was like, oh yeah, I'm done working. And I was like, oh, don't tell me that, I'm about to start. And he's like, oh, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a real estate agent. Well, funny story, I need to sell my house. And I met with him on a Thursday and got his house listed like a couple weeks later. And he's actually a real estate agent now in our office. So
it's amazing. On all those like three stories you just gave, it's literally just a mindset of opportunities all around you, right? Like all those, there's a barbecue, Starbucks, I got to use a computer. You're just getting business just because like you're actually putting it out there as like positive, helping people, and people want that, right? Like I've actually never heard any part of this whole discussion around selling anything to anybody. You've literally just led with value, and by doing such, you fill the gap that's necessary on the ground for people's home ownership. Like it's phenomenal. I just give you a ton of credit on that one because it's definitely something that's missing in a lot of industries around just leading with what's best for the client. So it's amazing to hear that.
My dad always told me, like, because he was in car sales for so long, and he said I was always the person who was out on the lot, even if it was raining, right? Because I wanted to be the first person that they saw when they came in. And then what set me apart in his perspective, what sets me apart from the other people is that I created a relationship with them because they could, buy the same car at the dealership 3 rows down, but why would they buy with me? Because he said they're there to buy a car anyways, right? Whoever they buy it with is up to them. So he created relationships. Like he said, he would always mention me because, my daughter and this, that, and the other thing, right? And then I got a wife and the family and we're going on vacation and just creating the relationship with people. And that brought him an immense amount of business later because people would always say, oh, you got to go buy your car from Lou.
I find interesting, especially, in your story and others like you, right? You said, I gave myself 90 days to do this and you treated it as your profession. But also having known you during that time, while real estate was your focus, it wasn't that easy, right? You had other jobs you were doing. You were doing photography. You were still working at the gym, right? So you were doing multiple things. But the idea that this was not going to work for you never once stepped into your mind. Those were secondary and subsidiary to make this work.
Yes.
Your mindset, right? Like you had preparation, you had a plan, and then you just took action on it. But I've been on this kick that like great idea, like great action comes from great ideas, and that like in order to change anything or to do anything amazing and monumental and impactful is like you got to have the right mindset. And if you don't start with the right mindset of understanding what your impact's going to be and your future vision, like it's great to have great ideas and talk about it, but where the rubber meets the road, like where do you see that coming from? Like where does your mindset, I mean, from moving around and having to build businesses and network and all that type of stuff for trials and tribulations, like where do you get your mindset from?
I think it comes from mostly my father's influence. Like every time I try to, or I work to succeed at something, I always think of how hard he worked and how successful he became. And I also like failure was never really an option in my household growing up. So when I think back, it's taken me a long time to realize that failure is actually a way forward. It's not something that's going to stop you. Because the mindset was always like, do better, Dilara, you do better, and it was always I can't go backwards, right? But now with business and actually being a true business mindset person, like now I have employees and stuff, I realize failure is not something that will stop me in my tracks. It's something to learn from, which in return has created a way better mindset as far as like, hey, if something's not working, let's sit down, let's talk about it. Let's come up with a solution, how we both can win, in this sort of scenario. So, if somebody on my team says, Dilara, I don't think this is working, right? Okay, cool. Let's sit down. Let's talk about it. How do we move forward, or how do we get rid of it and replace it, right? So it's just fail fast, fail forward. Has definitely been the new mindset for me, 100%, instead of, fail and stop. So
you mentioned you've got employees now, right? So What does that look like? So now that we've seen you become the realtor, you've got a couple of transactions on it. Now, here we are in year 4. Sure. You've got a team, you've got a company, and you've got employees.
Yes.
How has that changed you as a business owner and an entrepreneur?
I feel like it's really amazing. A little bit of backstory, like I went to our Keller Williams conference, family reunion, and it amazed me how many people could build their business however they wanted it, how small, how big, it didn't matter in between. And I just found that just absolutely awesome in the sense that you could be successful with small and mighty, or you could be successful with a very large team, right? And I wanted to work on building my team. So my first year, I hired my first assistant. I was literally drowning in transactions. I'm not a paper person, never have been. I'd rather go out, meet people, sell homes, you know? So I filled the thing that I wasn't good at with someone. And
A little bit of leverage for you.
yes, I got leverage. I think it was, I messed up something and I was like literally in tears. Our team lead had said, "Didn't I tell you to hire somebody?" And I was like, yes. And I, listen to all the podcasts and they say when opportunity hits you in the face, make sure you take it instead of letting it go away. And so this person that I had hired, she had been in real estate before, had all the tools that I needed, for my business. And I hired her on. I said, "Hey, I can't pay you a whole lot, but I'll pay you hourly for now. And then when we grow, I'll pay you more," And so I hired her, and she's been the best hire I've ever hired. She's my operations manager now.
Still with you. So the first hire is still with you.
She is still with me. Yeah. And I don't know what I'm doing without her.
Everyone watch this. So,
So, but slowly from there, so really success leaves clues, right? So I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. I'm not here to do anything extra. I'm not going to invent something that like all of a sudden everyone's going to follow, right? I listen to the podcast. I read the books. Millionaire Real Estate Agent. I've read it a couple times. And I've just been following the model. And the budget, right? The budget model, and everything. So making sure I'm keeping my expenses in check. And every time we saw a need, I hired somebody. So now my team is myself. I have an operations manager, an in-house transaction coordinator, a client care coordinator. She's my second admin, and a buyer's agent.
I love that when you started mentioning the team, you said 3 administrative staff before you even went to your additional transactional leverage on the sales side.
Yes.
Got a question for you, and I'm excited to see how you respond to this one. Right?
Okay. Bring it on.
Yeah, put you right on the hot spot. So, like, what's great, what I always struggle with, right, is thinking about if you build a great business and like you're like, "Hey, give me the model. I'm going to succeed. Failure is great. I'm going to roll with it. Take some punches on the way, but I'm going to keep it moving and keep it going." And like, if that's the model, and I'm going to learn, apply it, keep it moving, I'm going to keep growing because I needed to get out of debt, and I needed to build a business, and I needed to fulfill this like gap of like service and value within real estate. So I always see the business as a vehicle for what we want in our life, right? Or how we want to see the world, right? So if business is not good or bad, money is not good or bad. It just is what it is, because that's how you can actually have impact. Because the more money you make, the more you can donate. The more money you make, the more impact you can have in revitalizing something, or your ability to help somebody else that is trying to grow a business and actually be like a, call it a halo investor, right? So when you look at building that business and then getting to an income stream that was well beyond your prior, photography and any other service industries and the gym and all that. So you built this business from the ground up, truly entrepreneurial. Like, no, you didn't get it from anybody. Nobody really helped you. You like got in some training and you really won. That's amazing. So you build this business and look at where you were 4 years ago, right? So I want you to think back 4 years. You built the business. It's had all these successes and tribulations probably too. So when you look at where you are today, compared to where you were 4 years ago, and given the fact that you were able to entrepreneurially build something that you own, operate, and lead, what impact has that had on your life?
Oh my gosh, I can't even. Well, I mean, just to bluntly put it out there, I mean, 4 years ago, I was on the verge of divorce. finances has a huge play into relationships for sure. And we were swimming in debt. My husband and I were not happy with each other. We weren't happy with the situation we were in either. And I mean, I was 24 years old. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I said, "Man, I've got so much life left. What are we going to do?" Right. I mean, I had a 2-year-old and I didn't want him living the life that we were living. Right. And all the things, like unhappy, stressed, huge amount of anxiety and everything like that. And where I'm at today, I mean, I couldn't be thankful enough. I mean, I am out of debt. I have no car payments. The only debt I have is homes. My husband is awesome. Like, it's amazing how your mindset changes against your spouse when there's not that additional stress. We're in a good place. We go on vacations. Like, we don't really like have to check the bank account every morning to make sure if we can buy groceries, we've bought investments, bought our pretty much what we call our forever home 1.0. I put a Tesla on my dream board when I first got into real estate, checked that box a couple months ago, like all the things. So, yeah, I mean, I've by far surpassed like where I thought I would be by this time, like at all. Like, it's incredible. And obviously, with stress, you still have business stress. I have, I pay for people to work for me now, and that's their family life and everything too. So I think the biggest thing is just, I always ask my girls, like, how's the family before I ask anything else, because I know how that is. And I want to make sure that they're being taken care of, and that if there's anything that they need, they know they can come to me and stuff. But yeah, and then I get to mentor people and things now, and I think it's pretty cool.
I mean, there's nothing more impactful than that, right? Having a direct effect on what somebody else is doing, right?
Right.
Your decisions and your career and your progression has now put you in a space where you can help others.
Yeah. Right?
How does that make you feel, and where do you see that going? I mean, what's next?
I think that's awesome. Like, my transaction coordinator has a daughter who does competitive cheer, and I donate money for her uniforms every year. And, the fifth graders weren't allowed to have a party because of COVID. So they had a party outside of school, and we paid for food and stuff for that. And giving back, I mean, I've given back this year to the MS Foundation. I was diagnosed with MS last year, and my mom has MS. So, giving back to things that I'm obviously very passionate about. It's amazing, because I couldn't even give a penny 4 years ago to anything that I wanted to. And now I can help, anybody who needs it, really. Like, if somebody comes to me and they're like, "Dilara, our school needs X," right? I'm there, right? I'm all about it. Let's go. Tell me what you need. What's it for? It's just truly, truly impactful on my life. Real estate, I always say my first house was a nightmare, but it really was a blessing in the sense that it got me into real estate. So, as much as I moan about it, it is a blessing for sure. It saved my marriage. It really saved my family in a different way. So
it's a really amazing journey. I know there's another deep one for like for me would be, as you look back at that, the entrepreneurial impact for you, like who have you become because of betting on yourself and building a business that you're the lead on, and seeing all those things we just discussed? Like, who have you become as a person because of those experiences?
I am a lot stronger than I thought I was. I was severely bullied in high school, and like that does a lot for somebody's personality and stuff too, right? So I was really quiet for a long time. And I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17. I got medically discharged, sent back home. and had no idea what I was going to do with my life, which caused me to realize, like, well, maybe think, I would say not realize, but think that maybe whatever I try to do, I'm always going to fail at it, right? Because so many things were taken from me and stuff. And now knowing that I can do whatever I put my mind to, it's created a different part of me, as far as like, I know if I work hard, if I have a plan, it's okay to fail, those kind of things. I can do whatever I want. I mean, they always say, entrepreneurs, the largest entrepreneurs there are usually not afraid of failure. They're just learning from failure. And a lot of people have fear, right? When you're going to invest in something, or you're going to spend money on something, or your time, or whatever the case may be. But to realize that it's okay is huge for me, because I definitely have had that failure complex for a very long time, as to like, failure is not okay. And now to realize that you can move forward, you can get past it. It is okay. It's all going to be okay. And to realize that I have confidence in myself now that I used to not have, is definitely an eye-opening experience and change for sure. And I'm kind of excited to see where I'm going to be 5 years from now. Like, I feel like with 4-year growth already, and I'm like, dang, I mean, I got this. Like, what's coming next, right? Like, let's do it. So, yeah.
But Laura, I just want to say thank you for just being vulnerable and authentic around your journey, and just, being able to highlight for people that, yeah, sometimes it is a big risk to jump in and being your own boss and your own founder, and, whatever you want to call that, the different titles that we like to give ourselves as entrepreneurs. But, it's always it's fun to see the creativeness of the names. But that being said, I just want to say thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people, your story is definitely going to be impactful and uplifting to others, and really give them the courage and the perspective that, hey, she's no different than I am. She had the same challenges, she had the same issues. She came from, doesn't have a golden spoon in her mouth, and the end of the day, being able to say, hey, I saw a need and I was driven because I wanted something, and by filling that value gap for people, like, your services become extremely valuable, and you built a successful business off of that. And all of that success business wise is really poured into your personal life to give you a fully rounded, balanced life that we're always looking for. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that today. And that journey is really impactful for people to hear. And just thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And to just kind of top on that, relationship business, being vulnerable, and then putting yourself out here like this, that's no small feat. Right. And when people see us and see you, especially what you've done, like, you're approachable, you're reachable, and you're real. Right. So that reflection for them, whether it's in real estate or any other business that they decide to do, right, there's a way to get yourself and continuously moving forward. Right. And I assume, and I know that your story and your profession will continue to inspire others, and you will continue to grow. And I look forward to seeing what that looks like for you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Dora. Well, Dave, it was a great inaugural kickoff for our podcast. I'm sure we're going to have amazing more for next week. But I think I had a blast talking with you and talking with Laura today. And I'm just literally looking forward to our next podcast. We're going to the next person that's really having a deep entrepreneurial impact, not only for themselves, their business, but also for the community and people at large. So it's exciting today, bud.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for doing this for me. And I look forward to many more weeks as well of taking people through and understanding their entrepreneurial impact and how we can continue to share that with others. So have a great day.